Hello, and welcome to our Training in a Cross-Cultural Context webinar. I'm Amy Cook, BCBA and Community Manager from Erasmus, and I want to go over a few things before we get started. First, you will all be eligible to earn one free CEU if you're watching this live and complete a few requirements. We will share 3 keywords throughout the webinar that you need to jot down. After the webinar, I'm going to share an online form to complete, and you will type in the 3 keywords to confirm your participation. A recording will be sent out to all registrants. However, only live participants are eligible to earn the CEU. So the first keyword is global, and I'll go ahead and type that in chat in a minute, or Jamie, if you don't mind typing that in the chat. The first keyword that you need to write down for your CEU is global. Before I hand it over to our fabulous guest speaker, I want to share a little bit more about Erasmus. Erasmus is an ABA clinical software company that was inspired by our founder's son, Rasmus, who was diagnosed with autism early on in his life. Our goal is to help deliver the highest quality behavioral therapy services to 1 million children with autism by helping the people who help them. Behavior analysts, techs, teachers, parents, clinical directors, and all of you that are here today. We provide the best clinical platform so you can keep the focus on the child in front of you. I'm now going to hand it over to our fabulous guest speaker. We have the founder and CEO of Global Autism Project, Molly. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share.
Yeah, thank you. Very, very excited to be here. Love, love, love what y'all are up to at Erasmus. I hear lots of good things about Erasmus, and obviously sort of a more global company than some are. So that's always exciting for us on the Global Autism Project side of things. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Hopefully my
And I will
screen.
say, while Molly's getting her screen started, if you all don't mind kind of saving the questions for the end, we do have a Q&A, so you can submit the questions through the Q&A, and then at the end we'll review and answer as many as we can. So thank you.
Excellent. Welcome, friends. This particular workshop is called Training in a Cross-Cultural Context. And the sort of subtitle of that is Better Than Buy-in. I have this whole sort of thesis that trying to get people's buy-in is what often leads to burnout. So I want to go over just a few of the learning objectives that we have here today. One of them is to identify key strategies for sustainable training. So learning how to implement training approaches in a way that moves beyond surface level buy-in to actually foster genuine engagement. I want you to learn to analyze cross-cultural considerations in training delivery. I believe this is particularly important and particularly timely, given the announcement recently by the BACB, where the focus is not necessarily, they're not going to be focusing specifically on DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, that does not mean that our diverse populations, it's always like diverse from what, right? That our diverse populations do not deserve equity and do not deserve inclusion. We are still going to work towards that in the work that we do. So just a little quick note there. And then to think about applying lessons learned from what we've done globally. And I'll talk a little bit for a moment just about who the Global Autism Project is, who I am. Again, my name is Molly Ola Pinney. I'm the founder and CEO of the Global Autism Project. And we have worked internationally for over 20 years. This says nearly 20 years. I need to edit. For over 20 years, using a really unique approach to collaboration and leadership development. Our model has been recognized by the United Nations. I'm a recipient of an honorary degree from Columbia University for the work that we've done, a TEDx speaker where I talk more about some of this. But we really want to share with you what that experience has been like working internationally, and how you can bring it into your own work. Personally, I have consulted to over 50 autism centers worldwide for the past 20 years, a board member of private equity backed organization here in the US. I advise startups through another business I have. And more importantly, I really consider myself more than anything a leadership mentor and coach. It's one of the most important things I think that as clinicians we develop in this space, because this is a relatively new field and we do need to step into leadership roles in order to drive the direction of this field, especially as clinicians. I speak a lot about this idea of doing with and not for when it comes to leadership. So for the past 20 years, as I said, we have worked internationally with autism centers worldwide. And part of the way that we've done our work is through a program called Skill Corps. And that's where people much like yourselves, we'll chat about the end, but people much like yourselves, and some of you have already joined us, travel to countries worldwide where we have partnerships to support and train the local professionals there. We really work to do what's called build capacity for services worldwide. There are a lot of countries that do not yet have clinicians, although that's getting smaller and smaller thanks to our incredible partners around the world. And there's some great work happening. But this is a quote that we share with every team that goes out. And we have actually since 2004 really taken this quote to be our guiding, part of our guiding principle. And I think, it's particularly relevant now. I think in the world that we live in, where people are making judgments about those people over there and those other people. And this has always been the case in a global context, right? And this is a beautiful Lao Tzu quote: go to the people, learn from them, live with them, start with what they know, build with what they have. But with the best of leaders, when the job is done and the task accomplished, the people will say, we have done this ourselves. I love this. This is particularly relevant to the work that we do, not just globally, but in our own communities, with people in our own organizations, with families that we work for. People have no better feeling when it comes to their kids' success than when they own it and they've done it themselves. And so how do you as a clinician we had to make sure that our work, we called it the flyaway test. We had to make sure that our work passed the flyaway test because we got on airplanes and we flew away from the countries that we work in. Still do, right? We saw this during the pandemic. Okay, we passed the flyaway test and the pandemic test. People are still doing the thing. We don't always think about that as much when we're working in a family. We say, okay, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. But if we can take those lessons learned from building capacity internationally and bring them into this community and this world, and have parents feel and teachers feel and our learners feel as though they have done this ourselves, it creates a whole different paradigm. Okay, there is a question chat. That being said, feel free to type in any comments in the regular chat window. I have it open. So one of the ways that we do this is we make sure that we are all working on purpose. We make sure that the people in our organization are working on purpose. And Amy Jen Sue has this great equation, this plus this equals this, right? Contribution plus passion equals purpose. Just go ahead and type in passion in the chat if you're passionate about the work that you do, right? And every single one of you is a contribution to other people's lives at a really huge level, right? At a really huge level. Now, if you've been in the field for 100 million years, like I have, you've seen that contribution over the years. You've been able to meet with and work with the kids that you worked with years ago, and the families, and you see it, and you know what it's like to have changed the trajectory of that person's life. If you're newer in the field, that'll come. Stick with it, right? But contribution plus passion equals purpose. And having people be on purpose, right? Having people be connected to what it is that they're doing and do it because they want to do it is huge. Now, sometimes we forget in the day-to-day, in the report writing, in all of that, it can be hard to connect to that purpose, right? But all of you who are in this field, you don't stay in this field if you don't have passion for it. I'm crystal clear on. You don't stay in this field because it's easy, right? You stay in this field because you're passionate. You stay in this field because you want to be a contribution. And in order to do that, We have to make sure that people know they're making a meaningful difference, that there's a bigger mission. Now, it's really easy with something like the Global Autism Project to say, hey, our mission is to work, our mission is to work globally and create a world where every kid has access to services. We hear it in the high Erasmus, right? Blurb at the beginning, it's like, we're here so that 1 million kids have access to services. It's amazing, right? And it's a bigger thing. I would encourage you in your own organizations and even with the families that you're working for, we'll talk about how to do this in a moment, to really think about that bigger picture. Think about that bigger vision. Create this sense of belonging and community around the people that you're working with, okay? This all leads to fulfillment and satisfaction. So what the heck does this all have to do with cultural considerations and sustainable training, right? This idea of going to the people, living with them, learn from them, okay? Cultural context is everything, and purpose transcends it all. But cultural context is everything. Now, when you're working on purpose, when you're doing the work that you are out to do in the world, my hope is that it is approached with a certain level of curiosity, right? And that's why I love this little thing, right? This person here from a snowy place says, snowballs, I thought we were talking about coconuts, right? It's like the same, people see the same thing and they think two different things about it. This is the cultural context. That being said, purpose transcends all of this. So I want to share with you over these next few slides some of the lessons learned over the years, and certainly how they apply to our work domestically as well, or stateside, right? We don't know what we don't know about people's lives, about people's dreams, about people's interests. We don't know what we don't know. We know what we know. We have an idea about things that we don't know, right? I know that I know how to drive a car. I know that I know how to, I just came up an elevator, right? Right? I know that I know those things. I know that I don't know how to speak German. I know that I don't know how to fly an airplane. I know that I don't know, right? There's a long list. But there is a whole world of knowledge that is, I don't know what I don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And as we're working with families, and just a quick little note here, I consider every family its own culture. When I approach every family as if it's a brand new culture, and I approach it with the curiosity and the wonder and the interest that I approach the family that I meet in India, if I could approach the family I meet in Ohio with that same curiosity and interest and joy, right? Can learn so much. But we don't know what we don't know. And so this idea of, and I have some of these examples later on, but this idea of walking into a house and seeing a family do something, it's like we have a certain context, we have a certain judgment, but it's not necessarily relevant. These are some sort of hard pictures to look at. They're from a Human Rights Watch report published in the early 2000s. They're exactly what they look like. The part not pictured here is these are kids with developmental disabilities in West Africa. And looking at this, it is extraordinarily easy to say, oh my gosh, these people do not care about these kids. They have them tied to trees. These are real photos. These are things that I saw in 2003, 2004, when I started the Global Autism Project that long ago. And again, like purpose, passion, right? Contribution. That's why I'm still doing this work. It's been a long time. Go ahead and type in the chat. What are some of your immediate thoughts when you see this? Terrible. Desperation. Yeah. Horror, restraint, need help, inhumane. How can I help? Yeah. Uh-huh. 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 Yes, Denise. Yeah. Yeah, right. In conversations with these families, I learned that what they wanted was the same thing that I want for my own daughter here in the US. I want to keep her safe. And this is how they knew how to keep these kids safe, right? Caregivers are using the only tools they have. They have to have more tools. Yeah. Right. And oh, by the way, we don't just go in and say, oh, hey, don't have kids. We don't do that. Right. We need replacements. Right. Yes, it must be so hard to feel like you have to tie your own kid to a tree to keep them safe. Must be really challenging to get to this point. It is. It is. But when you go to the people and you live with them and you learn from them, you start with what they have and right, all of that. And you realize that there's so much more to the story than you're getting. Right? That's where you can actually start to engage and help. I have yet to go to another country where people weren't doing the best they can with what they have. That same passion and love and care that you feel, people feel all over the world. I want to share with you a little story of some unintended consequences. And this one I don't have an actual photo of. And this is like one of these, this is very safe compared to the thing that was in Ghana when I got there. When I first got to Ghana, I moved there with a family who had a child with autism. I was 23 years old, and at 23, we make a lot of questionable decisions, right? Mine was like get a passport and move to Ghana. Like, what could go wrong? It was super fun, right? It was cool. And I remember people coming to my house looking for the lady who knew what autism was. And through these people, I met somebody who had started an autism center. And there was this sort of merry-go-round. It was a little bit like this thing pictured on the left, but it was higher off the ground. And the kids would sit on it and swing or sorry, spin on this thing. But the kids couldn't go on it unattended by any means, right? And so the people would be putting the kids on it. And then there was this really great opportunity to work on manding. This was 2003. It was a really great opportunity to work on eye contact. If you haven't been in the field since 2003, you might not know that that was a big part of programming back then. And a couple years later, the following year, BCBA came and she said, oh my gosh, they have this playground equipment. It's so dangerous. We have to get rid of this. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I guess it is really dangerous. I never thought about that. We play on it all day, every day. I guess I just didn't realize how dangerous it was. Silly old me. And so this is also not the picture of the playground. But they ended up, she had a catalog of a swing set. The catalog was from Wisconsin. And they said, okay, so we're going to get rid of this really dangerous thing. We're going to pull it out. All the kids love it. All the staff love it. By the way, I don't know what your operational definition of safe or not safe is, but I never saw anyone get hurt. But here we go. We've decided with our very, sort of biased lens that this is unsafe. And so we're going to get rid of it. We're going to get this playground instead. So this catalog, and they build this beautiful wooden playground, and we think about the sustainability of it, right? Because we're thinking about unintended consequences a little bit at this point, over 20 years ago. We say, okay, we're going to make sure that this is funded in the long term. And so there's this beautiful wooden playground that gets built. And I go to this autism center about a year later. They still have the playground. It's in great repair. We've got a fund set up to maintain the playground. So it's not just going to end up broken and hurt kids in the end. And I'm looking out, and the teachers are not in sight. And I say to the director, like, do you know where the teachers might be? She said, I think they're just standing on the side. And I look out the window again, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't see the teachers. I go out, there's not a teacher in sight. And you can go ahead and type in the chat if you can just guess what happened here, right? What had happened was everybody loved this catalog with this Wisconsin-based company that makes playgrounds. And what they really loved about it, yeah, too safe, supervision not needed. Also, in the catalog, you do not see a one-to-one on every child on the swing set. So 1, supervision not needed. 2, it's safe. Now we don't need to engage with the kids. 3, in the catalog, kids are playing by themselves. So we really have to think things all the way through. We really have to think about what are people attending to when I'm teaching something new, right? So super interesting, learned a lot, we learned a lot, right? And now we have this was in like the early days of pivotal response training, right? And so now we have this, we're trying to like stop the kid from going down the slide so that he'll man to go down the slide. Meanwhile, this merry-go-round, the kid had to like ask to get up on it, ask to make it go, ask for you to hold that anyway. So it's just one of those examples. And I just want you to be thinking as we're talking about this, like, now where did something like this / could something like this happen stateside, where I see something, I make a judgment, I take it away, and now the family is like, okay, right? Beowulf and Risley in 1978, a long time ago, they said be mindful of effects on intervention, even the unintended ones, right? So really being mindful of those unintended consequences, really being mindful of the recommendations, the suggestions we're making to ensure that they're actually effective, right? Every family has its own culture. And here in the US, we are so grateful, that's my editorial, to be surrounded by people from all over the world who bring with them their own ideas, their own values. And as practitioners in this space, right, it becomes even more important for us to be mindful of that. I can think of examples where people are trying to get a kid to eat with a knife and fork. This family eats with chopsticks. I can think of examples where people are trying to get kids to eat with a knife and fork. In this culture, we feed our children by putting food in their mouth. It's important to our culture, right? Now, it's easy to look at this picture and go, oh, all of these families, yeah, they clearly have different culture. I want to invite you to consider that even if people do look alike, they still have their own sets of values and beliefs that create how they interact with each other. In this work, we're doing some of the most we're working with families at very vulnerable places in general, right? We're working with families in a time and a place where they may be concerned, they may be scared, they may be excited, right? Ann Byrne, who authored an ethics textbook, and I've known for many, many years, says clients have a right to effective treatment. It's our responsibility to make sure they want it. So just going in and saying, hey, you need to do this thing because it's going to work isn't what makes it happen, right? And I'm going to share with you a little Venn diagram, hopefully relatively soon. Yeah, we'll hit it in a second. But the idea is to honor those families, honor their experiences, get to know those people, right? Everyone wants to know, like, oh my gosh, how do you be culturally sensitive? I'm going to show you something about that in a moment, right? It's really about being a decent human with an open heart. These are foreign-born people living in the US. This is, let's see, what is this from? This goes up to 2060, projected from 2020 to 2060, right? The foreign-born share of the US population is projected to be higher than at any time since 1850. If you look at overall population and the percentage of people who are foreign-born. So this idea, and again, people do not have to be foreign-born to have different values, different culture, different set of beliefs, right? This is one of our teams having afternoon snacks in India with Sangeeta. She's totally amazing. You know, when I first met Sangeeta and the children at the center in India, corporal punishment was very much in place. There are kids to this day at that center who have scars from those days. I would not have made any inroads whatsoever by going in and saying, oh my gosh, you can't do this. First of all, you can do this. It's not illegal, right? Instead, what we did is we formed a relationship. We asked a lot of questions. Why is this happening? What do you want to have happen, right? Okay. So anyway, this importance of, and that doesn't happen anymore. And it was their idea. If you take nothing away from this presentation, if this presentation changes nothing about how you work with, by the way, keyword autism, by the way, keyword autism. Got that? If you take nothing else away from this presentation, take only this. People will believe things when it comes out of their own mouths. Now, see, for me, that removes any desire to tell people what to do. I would much rather ask questions. I believe in this Socratic approach. I've seen it work so well, both in working with our clients, in working with our colleagues, and working with our BTs, creating this sense of confidence, of ownership, right? The importance of cultural understanding is that we cultivate client-centric service. We need to be doing work that's socially significant. Well, if we're going to be socially significant, we need to have an understanding of culture. It improves service quality, and it expands our ability to work with each other. So this is this continuum that you see if you study culture stuff, right? We run from cultural destructiveness to cultural proficiency. And you know, this is one of those things people sometimes kind of see themselves. I remember when we would talk about cultural competence, right? Cultural proficiency is sort of this, to me, it feels a little bit like good luck. Accomplishing being proficient in what are you going to be proficient in? All of the cultures of the world. This is something that I think really resonates a lot more. And it's this concept of cultural humility. This concept of a lifelong process of self-reflection, self-critique, and a commitment to building partnerships with people and groups who advocate for others, fostering equity and inclusion. Cultural humility is an ongoing process. Cultural humility is not a one and done. There is no end point when it comes to our understanding of other cultures. But if we can self-reflect, we can self-critique, and we can have a commitment to building partnerships with people and groups who advocate for others, we can foster equity and inclusion. Now, listen, that's whether the BACB says we're going to include DEI or not. I don't care. At the end of the day, if you want to be an effective therapist, you do need to promote a culture of inclusion and promote a culture of equity. No matter what we're going to say out there, we know that in here, in order to be effective with our clients, in order to be effective as practitioners, we need to center the experience of the learner. Okay? So there is this idea of this cultural iceberg. It's very easy for us to say all of these surface culture things. This idea of food, flags, festivals, fashion, music, performances, dances, games, arts, right? Like the fun part, the like festival part of that we think of. But there's an entire world that we don't see. This is why I say every family has their own culture, right? Notions of courtesy and manners, friendship, gestures, body language, conversational patterns in different social situations, handling and displaying of emotion. Now, as you're seeing this, my guess is that you're recognizing that you've programmed for some of this stuff. You've programmed for some of this stuff, right? Attitudes towards elders, adolescents, dependents, all of this. Approaches to religion, courtship, marriage, all of this is part of deep culture that we don't necessarily see. This is just a lovely picture of our partners at the Global Autism Project from all over the world, right? Again, you've programmed for these things. So how do we co-create this idea of shared vision? This is the ability to think about or plan the future with imagination or wisdom. Because again, that shared vision is what has people work on purpose. Before I go on, go ahead and just type in the chat, what are some of your takeaways so far? In my perfect world, by the way, we would all be in person and I'd be looking at you and calling you out. And so we're gonna replicate that a little bit here. But what are some of your takeaways so far? What are you noticing? We are saving room at the end for questions, but what are some things that you're noticing in this? Yes, to ask questions. I love it. Every family is their own culture. Yes. What else? Yes, asking questions, being curious. Yes. Yeah, non-judgmental. It's so easy to judge, right? Proximity reduces our sort of like judgment, right? Increases wonder. To see what directions the family leads you rather than you leading the family. Yes. Yes, cultural humility is a lifelong process, not to make assumptions. People need purpose or to see the value. Yeah. Yes, Jamie, exactly. When we perceive something as wrong, it's really important to understand the context. We have to consider our culture and the culture of others. Never assume, right? Every family has its own culture. And when something doesn't align, it doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't make it wrong. It may be different. It doesn't make it wrong. We have to be very mindful in our programming that we are not trying to program away the cultural values of a family. If it is culturally valued and appropriate to serve your child with your hands, we don't want to program that away, right? We don't want to program away somebody's values, somebody's culture. We will not get the level of ownership over those outcomes that we want. Right? So co-creating this vision. Vision is what has people stay the course. Okay. So you want to talk about your why. You want to talk about their why. You want to be actively curious. Want input from everybody. We often say, be stubborn with your goals and flexible with your methods. For feedback, we want this feedback to go both ways. Now, again, this is not only when you're working with a family. Just go ahead and type in your role. What is your role in this field? Do you own your company? Are you a clinical director? Are you a staff BCBA? Are you something else? Go ahead and type that in. Just out of curiosity, and I want to make this a little bit. Okay, great. Clinical director. One clinical director. Okay, there we go. BCBA, BCBA, staff BCBA, co-owner. Yep. Consultant, assistant director, clinical director, special ed teacher. Yeah. Okay, got it. Got it. Yeah. So, right. Practitioner, OBM consultant. Awesome. Yes. Staff BCBA, do programming and therapy. That's that New York City. That's that New York City thing, right? Exactly, right? So making sure that in your role, either with families or with your BTs, that there's curiosity there. You don't just go, oh, no, that's not how we do it. That you're getting input. There is nobody in the world besides that child themselves who knows more about that child than their family. And honoring their experience is vital, right? Now, this little bit about being stubborn with your goals and flexible with your method. There's more than one way to get there. And somebody said earlier, right, when you have the family help guide, have the family help guide where you're going, right? I have a little Venn diagram. I want to kind of skip ahead. I want to, there we go. I'm going to skip ahead, then I'll go back. This is a little Venn diagram that we use in all of our programming internationally. It is their priorities, your priorities, and then sustainability. Write that down, screenshot that. Their priorities go here. Your priorities go here. Sustainability goes here. I think about this. I remember I'm one of those people who wakes up and makes my bed. Like if I have 1 minute to be out the door, my bed is more likely to be made than like my shoes on. Right? Like I just like default wake up, make bed, wake up, make bed. Like oftentimes before I even go to the bathroom in the morning, like wake up, make bed. So I was working with a kid many years ago and we're teaching morning routines. And as you can well imagine in my culture, I guess, I don't know, my mom's a nurse. She fed nurses back in the day, used to be known for making beds really, really well and always making beds. But bed making was a huge part of the culture of my family, right? In terms, not a huge part, but it's like everybody did every morning, no questions asked. We make our beds in hotels. It's a very strange thing. But anyway, make bed. So I was working on morning routine. And so morning routine, like wake up, brush teeth, go to the bathroom, make bed, get dressed, right? Whatever. And this kid was doing so well, except for this thing of making his bed. And then one day I walked by his parents' room. It was like 2 p.m. Their bed was not made. This was not a value in this household. This was not something that was modeled, right? I'm sure my sister and I make our beds immediately because my parents' bed was always made immediately. And if you had to guess, looking at this graph, where does this chart, where does make bed fall? Whose priority was that? Type in the chat. Yep. Only mine. Nobody else's. And as you can imagine, there's like judgment, right? The immediate thing is judgment because I make my bed every day. Why don't you? What are you talking about, right? Lots of research. Successful people make their beds every day, right? Lots of stuff, right? Not theirs. And it was therefore not sustainable, meaning long after I'm gone, hey, nobody in that house making their bed. That goal would only be sustainable if it was aligned with that household in general. So I want you to think right now of an example of something that you have tried to do with a family that has just not stuck. Type it in the chat. Everything else is going great. Just this one thing has just not stuck. What is that thing? Sometimes that has something to do with eating. Sometimes that has to do with sitting at the table. And then you realize, yep, having the child dress themselves. Yeah. Sweets after a certain time. Yep. Getting dressed on your own. I was trying to do it too early. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Token system. Screen time. Yeah. Lots of different ideas about screen time, right? Household chores, chewing in their mouth closed. Yeah. My own kids, shoes and backpack away after school just hasn't stuck, right? Yes, co-sleeping, huge thing, right? Eating at the table, not allowing TV at night when in bed. Yes, 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 yes. Right? And can you now see how that just wasn't a goal? Just not in their priorities. And if it's your own kids, Amy, it's like it's not your kids' priority. Might need to have some sort of other system of reinforcement in place, right? All right. All right, now I'm going to come back over here because I just zoomed along. All right, so this idea of ownership, cultivating ownership. We see this ownership only where the three overlap. Your priority, their priority, and well, sustainability you don't necessarily need for ownership, right? But their priority has to overlap in your programming. The 4 I's of cultivating internship. No, I just said a random word that starts with an I of cultivating ownership, right? Inquiry, engaging with sincere curiosity. Someone said just because that's not how you do it doesn't make it wrong. Here's the thing to know. You have no persuasion over anyone you have a judgment about, right? This is relevant. This is relevant not only to your clinical work and your family and all that, right? This is relevant. Okay. This is vital to get people's input when we talk about co-creation and really get input from every member of your team. Sometimes your BTs have some of the best programming ideas out there. They're like, I was having a really hard time with this, but I tried this one time, or I did this one thing. Active listening, getting information, feedback, providing and accepting, right? And then implementation, leadership, mindset shifts, strong communication, right? So inquiry requires that you maybe adjust your listening, that you ask with genuine curiosity based on the come from or the belief that everyone wants to do a good job. You can also adjust questions on intake forms with your families to account for cultural differences. Should I keep my shoes on or off when coming into your house? How does your family make decisions? Who in your family makes decisions? What holidays do you celebrate? Sometimes you're there trying to get buy-in and trying to have a conversation with everybody in the family, but culturally, dad calls the shots. I've had that happen in New York City. It culturally, it's not up to mom. And whether you think that's right or wrong, that's how that family operates. Okay. What holidays do you celebrate? What are some of your customs? Is there a day of the week that your family doesn't participate in work? Different for everybody. You're offering make them up, shake them up Saturdays for, missed sessions. And you have some people who are not going to, under any circumstances, show up on a Saturday. You have some people who are not going to, on any circumstances, show up on a Sunday, right? Here's this little graph again. Second chance to screenshot. This again is where co-creation and leadership live, where all three overlap. You can think about sustainability as, does it pass the flyaway test? If I leave, will this still happen? Yeah, it's sustainable. Do they have everything they need, right? Another little framework I want to introduce to you that could potentially change your work forever, has for a lot of our skill core alums, is this idea, this essential framework. Now, a lot of these frameworks, it's funny to kind of see them in slides and to have been teaching them for over a decade now, because I still remember the scrap of paper and the half broken pencil that sketched this out once upon a time. Because these all come from real world examples. That your priorities, their priorities, sustainability. I remember the like half sheet of paper and the 3 hastily drawn circles trying to explain to a team in country why we're not just going to come in and tell these people what to do. We are here for 2 weeks. This is their program. Same thing with the kids. Maybe we have that kid for 30 hours a week, but at the end of the day, this is their kid, right? Essential framework. This is essential, preferable, and preferable to me. And this one is a whole lot of fun to play with. Oops, I just made this window way too big. There we go, ish. All right. So lots of examples of this. And I want to just share one, the original one, straight from the streets of Accra, Ghana, circa 2007, I think. Myself and a colleague, BCBA, had spent half the day going around to local markets looking for a tally counter. Now, keep in mind, I've been in the field. There's a reason that this is a sheet of paper with lines on it, right? I've been in this field. I also did fluency-based precision teaching long before digital data was a thing. There was no Erasmus. Okay. There wasn't even anything that looked anything like Erasmus, right? There were like not smartphones to let you know how long ago I've been doing this, right? And we were looking for a tally counter. You know, the thing, it's like the little round silver thing, and you click, 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 and it is so great for counting frequency data. It has its shortcomings, right? Sometimes a kid likes the sound it makes, or all kinds of things. But we're looking for a tally counter because we're going to train the staff in this center on how to collect frequency data. Spend all day looking for a tally counter, go out to some night markets looking for this tally counter, try to figure out if we know anybody flying from the US who can bring us a tally counter, because we're teaching frequency data collection. And this tally counter is great for frequency data collection. You just click, 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 keep it in your pocket. That happened, that happened, that happened, that happened. Never found one. Probably have plenty of tally counters in Ghana today. One of those little like golf counter things, right? Plus, we're like, how do we even explain this thing? Like, we need this silver thing, and you click it, and there's numbers. Anyway, it was preferable to us that frequency data was collected using said tally counter. But what actually needed to happen at this center, where no data was collected and zero database decisions were happening and no staff even knew what to look for, was one, to start to learn what to look for, and two, to start to learn to collect data. That is what was essential. We were so freaking focused on finding this tally counter that it was like we even forgot like the basics of data collection. So we went from wanting a tally counter to collect frequency data to, okay, well, it'd be nice if we could at least collect frequency data, to actually, we need to start with data is collected. Now, this is an extra credit question. Starts with SH. What could we call this process? What's another word for this idea of essential, preferable to me? What is that procedure in ABA? Starts with shaping. Shaping, all caps, shaping. Yeah, exactly. Okay. We can start with just collecting data, talking about what behaviors we're even looking for, right? We can then create that we're going to collect it as frequency data, not just like, did it happen today? Yes or no, right? And then we can get into the tally counter. Now, here's the other thing. When you are so freaking focused on preferable to me, you miss out on all the amazing things around you. By the way, in PS, the way we ended up collecting this data is I took off a bracelet that had a bunch of beads, took all the beads off the string. Beads went from one pocket to the other. Ta-da, we've collected frequency data now, right? But we wouldn't have even thought of that, frankly, if we'd found a tally counter, but with that hyper focus on finding a tally counter. Where in your own practice, type in the chat, now that you're thinking about it, now that you see it this way, where in your own practice have you been in the preferable to me? Have you not been able to accept like an approximation of the behavior that you want, right? Sometimes it's around mealtime with the family. I need the family to have meals and to collect data during meals, or I need the family to sit down together and use whatever. Yes, I do remember those, the behavior analytic gold, the motivators. Yep. They are no longer made. Yeah. Yeah. Behavior plan at home requiring high level supervision. That might be preferable to you. Might not be possible just yet. Right. Thinking of the finished behavior I want rather than perfectly functional behavior the family is happy with. Yes, 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 right? So we have these two things that kind of overlap, this essential, preferable to me, and then the priorities, your priorities, my priorities, right? All that good stuff. Yeah, showering, pointing, pecs at home. Yeah, we see a whole lot of clinicians spending time in preferable to me. But now that you have this, distinction, you go, oh, that's just preferable to me. Yeah, that's preferable to me. But what's essential here? What do we have to do? Right. So we have a lot of fun out in the field around the world, collecting these examples and doing this work and showing where all the priorities overlap. And then our clinicians who have traveled with us, and by the way, it's intentionally we recruit for professional and personal diversity. And so intentionally we have BTs working alongside siblings, working alongside self-advocates, working alongside BCBAs, SLPs, et cetera. That's intentional because all of those different perspectives are so important when they get to work together. Absolute magic happens in these programs and for these kids, right? But you have all, and listen, the SLP has different priorities than the clinical psychologist. The clinical psychologist has different priorities than the self-advocate, than the BCBA, et cetera. You see how that happens. So even in that circle of our priorities as a team, we got a whole lot of ideas. But sometimes, just sometimes, that one idea that no one else had also overlaps with that family or that local autism center. All right, so here's the thing, guys. This doesn't have to be hard. You do not have to read every textbook in the whole entire world and master this idea of cultural sensitivity or cultural competence, right? This idea is cultural humility. This is all based on creating relationships with people, not dual relationships, right? But being in communication, being in conversation. It is possible using these principles that you can create an environment that works for everyone. And lastly, I will always encourage you, whether it's in your leadership, with your own kids, in your center, working with families, to do with and not for. When we do things for people, we remove their agency to do things for themselves. We therefore remove their purpose, their desire to be a part of it. So I said in the beginning that I was going to explain to you Skill Core. We call it not just a 2-week trip, it's a movement for change. We've had over 1,000 clinicians travel with us. And it is your opportunity to transform the world and discover the connection, inspiration, and freedom that you've been searching for in this field. It is really special. We have a few alums on this call, I know. And our applications open at the end. When do they open? In June of this year? No, May of this year, I believe. Applications open soonish. globalautismproject.org/webinar waitlist. You can join that waitlist and you will get a waiver for 50% off the application fee if this is something you're interested in. Just a little note there. Did we have, I'm going to unshare my screen here. Well, I can put that in the chat too. globalautismproject.org/webinar waitlist.
While you're putting that in the chat, I just want to say thank you, Molly. That was just such a relevant and awesome presentation. And I think you have a true gift of, you talked a lot about curiosity, and just listening to your presentation, you have the MO, or I guess the EO, for establishing curiosity. There were so many great reflective questions in there to really get people thinking and kind of spark that curiosity to help with better understanding. So very good.
Yeah, and if there are any open questions that anybody has, go ahead. Now is the time. I think I don't know if any have come in or where we're at.
I am switching my screen real
for the
quick,
last
but if you
code
can
word.
look under there. Yes, I'm going to give the last keyword in just a minute. I am trying to get my screen to let me go where I want it to.
We can see your screen right now, it looks like.
Yeah, I'm just trying to adjust it real quick. There we go. Okay, on the bottom, do you guys see any Q&As in there? We're in the Q&A. Let me see here.
I don't see. I see all open, answered.
Yep.
No.
Okay, I think it's all in there. Well, I'll go ahead and give the last keyword is project. And there is the link there also. So if we don't have any other questions, if you do, feel free to stay on. But if you want to learn more, you can check out our website and book a demo to see how our platform can help you. You can also connect with us on social media and stay up to date with our latest webinars and free resources. We have an awesome autism awareness acceptance webinar coming up next week with a BCBA that's on the spectrum. So you can check that out. And please also don't forget to complete the form in the chat to earn your CEU. I hope everyone has a great day, and thank you for joining us to learn and grow.